how many of you have ever had to call 911? In my case, every major life lesson, every major life event begins with this number. Today, I'd like to share with you two perspectives on how my life has been shaped by crisis. The first perspective comes from growing up in the foster care system, and the second perspective comes from providing kinship care to my niece and nephew. Having lived in both systems, I can tell you that kinship care is a better way forward. The first 911 call came when I was 4 years old. It was made by multiple neighbors. There are descriptions coming into the dispatch center that there's a 4-year-old African-American boy in the middle of the street screaming, crying, alone. We were stationed at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. The military police responded and discovered that my parents had left me. This problem exposed the many incidents within our family. Social services were offered, but they didn't work. Later, my parents decided to separate and divorce. My father stayed in Florida. My mom moved my two sisters and I to Georgia to be closer to other family. Unfortunately, our problems traveled with us to Georgia. My mom faced significant challenges. A short time after arrival, a decision was made to place me in the foster care system. I remember that day vividly. A social worker showed up to our house. She placed me in the backseat of a white Ford Taurus, and we drove away. The street lights disappeared. They were replaced with trees that swayed with the wind. Traffic lights became stop signs. Urban became rural. Imagine being 6 years old, sitting in the backseat of a car with a stranger in the front seat as you stare out the window to the unknown. We turned down Ashbury Road in Temple, Georgia, and the trees faded into the background. They were replaced with headstones and grave markers as we passed a cemetery. Now my imagination knows what's exactly about to happen. This stranger in the front seat is about to kill me and bury my body among the dead. And I'm not about to let that happen because I'm supposed to grow up to become the Red Power Ranger. The grave markers disappeared, and we turned left onto the driveway of the Lukes. I sit in the den while my caseworker met with my new foster family. I was afraid. I was alone. I missed my family. I saw a phone in the kitchen and decided to call the only number I knew, 911. The 911 operator picks up, and this is Adrian. I've been kidnapped. This lady's about to kill me. Come and get me. Hurry up. And the 911 operator's, well, where are you? I don't know, but when you get past the graves, take a left. The Lukes turned out to be a great foster family. I wish we had more foster families like the Lukes. And if you're a foster parent or you're thinking about becoming a foster parent, from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. There are two things you should know about foster care. One, foster care is not permanent. It was designed to be a temporary solution to a family crisis. It could never replace being reunified with your family or an adoption. The second thing you should know is that foster care is change. It changes you. There are life perspectives and experience that I have that are often unmatched by my peers. That's why I believe kinship care is a better way forward. And chances are you've experienced kinship care or provided kinship care and may not even realize it. How many of you have heard the phrase, it takes a village? That's kinship. Most experts agree it derives from ancient African cultures, where the collective responsibility of raising the children was that of the community. How many of you can point to a coach, a mentor, a colleague, or a neighbor who has had a major influence on your life? That's kin care. And there's a stark difference between kin care and foster care. That difference became real to me when I was 21 years old. I remember that day vividly just as I did when I was 4 years old, 6 years old, 15 years old. I had just worked a long shift at a local video store. I came home, sat down to a gourmet meal that consisted of a ham and cheese sandwich and sour cream and onion chips. I'm still working on my cooking skills, by the way. I turned on my television, the episode of The First 48 was on, and my phone rings at the same time, so now I'm freaking out. Mr. McLemore, this is the Harrison Township Sheriff's Office. There's been a situation. involving your sister and her children? Are you able to come and pick them up? If not, there's a social worker here who will take the children and place them in foster care. My niece was 3. Aw, my niece was 3. My nephew was 1. But let me be honest with you, I was not prepared to take them in. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my niece and nephew, I've been around them since birth, but I always reserve the uncle power to give them back to their mom when we were done hanging out. This time was different, though. As I was driving to the police station, I realized that this time that if I brought them home, they were going to be with me for the unforeseeable future. I also had to confront another issue that at times in the past had truly paralyzed me. I would have to change my nephew's diapers. You laugh, but I'm being serious. Up until this point, I'd done a fantastic job avoiding this duty. I mean, the smells, the amount of wipes you use to make yourself feel safe and comfortable, I was not looking forward to it. The first night was rough. The first month was stressful. My niece had nightmares. My nephew cried every night. Kinship was hard. I was overwhelmed. There are things that happen in kinship that boggle your mind. Expectations and standards change or elevated. I went from being a full-time working college student to a full-time uncle dad to toddlers. But my prevailing thought throughout the entire process was I didn't want them separated. I didn't want them with strangers. You see, foster care tries to keep siblings together, but that doesn't always happen. And in fact, of all the years that I spent in foster care, I was never placed with my sisters. If next month, next week, next year, you were to get a phone call asking you to provide care for someone you knew, what would your answer be? Currently, there is no state-mandated training for kinship care. It's a trial-by-fire situation. But what I want you to take away from my interaction today is that you don't have to be a kin care provider and go out and buy bunk beds and fill your fridge with pizza rolls and Lunchables. I didn't do that. Okay, I did that. You can be a kin care provider in your own way every day. You need 3 attributes. The first is you have to be keen. You have to be eager. It's exciting, it's rewarding, it's challenging. One day you're making big decisions like their health and safety. The next day could be decisions concerning, what color hair ties do I pack today? Second, you must be informed. I believe we must do a better job of asking more questions and seeking more answers. Part of the problem in our society today is that we tend to always put our best selves forward. We always tend to put our best foot forward publicly, so when a crisis emerges, it often catches us off guard. Kinship is about being there for those around you. And it's not by yourself. I remember doing my niece's hair one time, or trying to do my niece's hair one time, and after 3 hours of my first and only attempt, my niece and I reached a compromise, which involved me never touching her hair again. But I would pack her hair bag, and her teachers would do her hair for her at school. The last thing you should know is that you should be flexible. You must be able to think quickly on your feet and expect the unexpected. That's it. And I submit to you that everyone in here possesses these 3 attributes. This is one of my favorite pictures of my niece and nephew. Aww. They were back at home with their mom. I had picked them up to hang out. And as I was sitting there watching them have this conversation, I realized that this is what it was all about. They were never with strangers. They were never separated. In this photo, my nephew was explaining his first day of school to his big sister. This is the essence of why it's important to maintain relationships within our communities and maintain relationships within our families. As you think about the current issues that plague our society today, I ask you to think about, what role do you play? We're all teachers, mentors, coaches, and we're all kinship care providers in our own way. According to the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, there are 14,000 children in foster care. There are 1,100 right here in our community. Imagine if we had enough people to step up and just help out one child in certain capacities. Just one child. I've identified at least 1,154 kin care providers in our community. Where did I arrive at this number from? That's the seating capacity of this sold-out venue.